Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys so much. Well, this is one of the most important, if not the most important lesson in all of Financial Peace University, the cash flow planning lesson. My friend Zig Ziglar says, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every single time. This is the place where we start happening to our money, where we start aiming our dollars at our goals, where we're aiming our dollars and we're squeezing our dollars so we've got dollars to throw at those baby steps and start working our way up through the baby steps. John Maxwell, my buddy, says that a budget is people telling their money what to do instead of wondering where it went. Haven't we all had that feeling at tax time? We get down there and we do our taxes and we go $65,000 income or $85,000 income or whatever it is, and you add it up and you go, where did that go? A budget is people telling their money what to do instead of wondering where it went. Now, one of the things I've learned is, and we talked about this in the very first lesson in Super Savings, where we said that personal finance is 80% behavior. It's 20% head knowledge. And I think that's why God is so concerned with how we handle our money, because it's an indication of where our heart is. It's an indication of where we are in our personal walk, our character, our discipline, if you will. And so it's very, very important understanding that this is so behavior-based that we feel money. In our culture, we tend to compartmentalize things. And we tend to say, well, you know, mathematics is over here, it's left brain. That's just all about the math, and there's nothing to do with relationships or spirituality or emotion over that. But personal finance is about behavior, so it has to be about spirituality. It's about behavior, so it has to be about relationships. It's about behavior, so it has to be about emotions. And so learning to feel money again, and since when money leaves, you have an ouchie moment. You know, it's like, you need to feel money again to be able to control it and win. And if you put yourself in a position that you're feeling money, it'll help you modify your behavior to hit your goals. I don't want you to feel money to feel pain unless you should feel pain. I mean, I don't want you to be one of those people that can touch a hot stove and not feel it. That's not a good idea. And see, with all the conveniences we have now, with debit cards and the internet interaction and even our cell phones, you know, we can buy stuff on them and all these different methodologies we've got to buy things, and we never actually touch cash when we're buying it. We're not feeling our money. So while you're going through the early stages of Financial Peace University, these first several weeks while you're in the class, I want you to go back to kind of an old-fashioned way of handling money on some things. Now, some things we're going to stay sophisticated. We're going to use the internet. I still use my debit card at the pump. I'm too lazy to walk inside, right? But you know, what would happen if you had to pay cash when the gas prices went up? You would feel the gas prices more. And there would be more of an emotional reaction to gas prices changing than there is. Now it's just like a number and it comes out and they hand you a little piece of paper. And you don't feel that. See, there's a whole different thing going on here. See, it's my contention that, for instance, they do it with taxes too, don't they? They take it out of your check and you never realize you paid money. You just got a smaller check. I think if they put a tax collector at your office, in every case, and when you got paid, you had to walk up and you had to pay the poor tax collector in cash every time you got paid, that person's life would be in danger. Don't you think? I mean, if you got a $5,000 check and you had to walk up and you had to hand them money, and then you're thinking about them buying $27,000 toilet seats in Washington, you'd be going bananas. Tax collectors would be treated like they were in the Bible. They would be a pariah. And it wouldn't even be their fault. We might even elect a different Congress if we had to do that. See, we don't feel money the same way when we don't see real money. When it's just numbers that are transferred or it's a piece of plastic. And I want to encourage you to put yourself in a position during this 9 weeks, during the 10 or 15 weeks that you embrace this whole thing, but with, you know, go into the details, dig in, and do some things you've never done before so you get some things you've never gotten before. And that includes converting some portions of your life to real cash so that you feel the money. That's a big deal. Don't miss that. That's going to be worth the price of admission alone right there. Now, let's look at some budgeting basics as we get started. The first thing I want you to know about money is active. It moves all over the place. It's wild, it's out of control. It's why we call it currency. It's got a current like a river has a current. It's moving, it's all over the place. And if money is active and it's running everywhere, our job is to make it behave. And sometimes it feels like we're trying to herd cats. You know, we're trying to nail Jell-O to a tree, right? I coached my son's ice hockey team when he was growing up. Put 25 7-year-olds on ice skates. Oh, you're done. Money's kind of the same way, isn't it? You know, it's like they're everywhere. And the people that win with money are the ones that understand that and understand it has to be tamed. And the budget, the cash flow plan that we're working on tonight is the whip and the chair. It makes it behave. You have to happen to your money. You have to tell your money what to do, or you'll always wonder where it went. Dr. Stephen Covey says in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the number one habit of highly effective people is they're proactive. They happen to things. Everything doesn't happen to them. They don't use victim language. They are an impact. They make a dent in things instead of things making a dent in them. And you got to take on that issue. Rick Warren says that you need to be intentional in purpose-driven life. You got to be intentional. So be intentional with your money. Be proactive with your money. Otherwise, it's going to leave. People who don't watch it, it just leaves. It wanders off. And you won't have any. I'm often asked when I'm being interviewed by the press, they're saying, Dave, what's the number one mistake that the American public makes with money? I said, well, there's a lot of mistakes we make with money, and they all fall under one heading. We didn't pay attention. You've got to be intentional. When you pay attention, then a lot of the mistakes that you make don't happen because they're mistakes of laziness. They're mistakes of we're just kind of wander along and everything's going to be okay. It's not okay. You have to nail this Jell-O to a tree. You have to get that 7-year-old hockey team to line up in formation. You got to get the whip and the chair out and make these dollars behave. You will either learn to manage money or the lack of it will always manage you. Money flows from those who do not manage it to those who do. That's one of the reasons there will always be some level of wealth inequality. The Bible tells us that. Jesus said it all the time. He said the poor will always be with us. And the poor will always be with us for multiple reasons. And it's sad, and I don't want anybody to be poor. I want to teach anybody to not think that way, to have a different mentality, to not set them up. But behaviors and choices, as we said the first night, cause our results. And so we got to change our behaviors and change our choices to get the results. And this is a big one. The choice to happen to our money. You have to do a written cash flow plan. Now that you could just circle that and say that's almost the thesis statement not only of this lesson, but maybe of the whole course. And you could circle it, and you could circle every month. You have to do a unique plan for each and every month. I mean, you could just circle the whole statement. Did I say that once, right? This is a big deal. If you manage money for a company called You Incorporated, and you manage money for You Incorporated, the way you manage money for you now, would you fire you? Don't answer that. And yet, we're mismanaging, we're not faithful in the little things, and we want God to bless us with the bigger things. And He says, when you're faithful in the little, you will be given more to manage. If you work at a fast food place and you do a bad job, they don't promote you to regional manager. You know, when your 16-year-old gets a car and they're incompetent and they don't know how to drive, unless you're silly, you don't give them a brand new car. I give them a 94 Chevette with a tired gerbil under the hood. And then when you prove competency, I will move you up into nicer things and more powerful things. Why? Because I'm a loving father. And I'm going to give my children things that they can control given their level of competency. Did you know if you get given a big gift that you can't control, it'll actually hurt you rather than help you? Your Heavenly Father knows that. So don't be praying, Lord, send me more money. Lord, send me more money. Lord, send me more money. I'm a doofus. I won't do anything right with money, but send me more. He's going, Because I love you, I'm not going to curse you with something you don't have the character to carry. So be faithful in the little things, and then be expecting more to manage on His behalf. The problem with this stuff is it's hard. And when you first start doing this, you're just not going to be any good at it because you've never done it before. When you sit down to do this cash flow plan, you're going to be awful. The first month, you're going to have 17 emergency budget committee meetings. The next month, you'll have about 10, and the next month, you'll have about 4. You'll get better as you go along, but it takes about 90 days to get a level of competency, about 3 whole months of doing this to kind of work the wrinkles out, to iron out the problems. It takes 90 days to be any good at it. Say 90 days. 90 days. Now, practice makes perfect. Grandma always said that. But think about times that you have had to learn to do something brand new and how you weren't any good at it at first. I remember I got my driver's license about 20 minutes after I turned 16 years old. I was one of those kids, I was dying to drive. I mean, we get home and everybody's sitting around and we had supper and a buddy of mine called and says, "You got your driver's license? Meet us down at the Pizza Hut," right? 16 years old, we're going to the Pizza Hut. So I get in my dad's pickup. I'm free, baby. I have freedom. I can drive, I have my license, I am a fully grown person. Wow. I go to Pizza Hut. We go in, I talk to my buddies, we drink Coca-Colas, we eat pizza. I leave in my dad's truck and I backed into a man's brand new Corvette. Ow! Not funny. Oh, I wasn't any good at driving when I first started. Were you? My kids weren't any good at driving. I get them in there with a straight shift, I get a whiplash. Every stoplight was an experience. You're not any good when you first start something. You remember when you first started riding a bike? Crash. Crack the head, crack the knee, something. Get those little things on your hands, you know what I'm talking about? But later on, you kept riding and you kept getting better and better. You kept driving and you kept getting better and better. I remember the first time we went snow skiing, they put us on the bunny slope. I thought, a bunny, that's kind of innocuous. It's not a big deal. This was a big rabbit. I get up there, and you know, the bunny slope's all about learning to ride the chairlift, really, and survive that, right? I mean, we're riding the chairlift and we got on with all of our equipment, which nobody else had done. We thought we were way ahead. I mean, there's equipment dotted all the way up through there, right? And we're looking up there at the top and people are coming off just piling up. So I told Sharon, I said, "You go around to the right, I'm going to go around the left. We're going to miss this pile. We got a plan, tips up, here we go." We were brand new, you know. So I went around to the left and stopped. She went around to the right, never stopped. All the way to the restaurant. Now she skis anything she wants to ski all those years later, and so do I. But when we first started, it's kind of scary, and you're kind of like Bambi on ice. You're not real good at it, you know? So remember learning to ride a bike. Remember learning to drive. Remember the snow ski experience or whatever it was you had to learn, and you weren't any good at it, but you kept at it until you got good at it. You can establish a level of competency, but it's not instantaneous. It's a process to get better by continuing to do something that at first is outside your comfort zone. And that's what this is all about. So the Bible clearly says, Jesus said, "Which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost? Lest you get halfway up and you're unable to finish, and those who see you begin to mock you and say, 'This man began to build and was unable to finish.'" Don't be one of those Christians that can't pay their bills. It's a bad witness. Be one of those people that lives your life in such a way that your life is attractive to others. And that includes this whole area of money, especially around this issue of budgeting. Think about it. The average household income in America today is about $50,000. Now, if you take 10 years of a $50,000 a year income, that would be $500,000 that flows through your fingers in 10 years. You would never build a $500,000 home with a builder and you just meet with him and just go, "I'll just put me one over there." No, you would sit down with an architect and develop what Jesus said. He said, "Don't build a tower without first counting the cost." You would put together a blueprint. And you would have every detail of what was going to be brick, what was going to be rock. You'd have the electrical schematic and the HVAC schematic in there. Everything would be laid out on paper before you broke ground on the house. The same thing is true here. On paper, before the month begins, every month for the rest of your life. And you have to balance your bank account. You have to balance your bank account. So many people today, because of the conveniences on the internet, the way they think they balance their bank account is they just check their balance. About 8 times a day they check their balance. I don't want to be that freaked out. I don't want to be living that close to the edge. What are you checking your balance thinking something unexpected is going to happen? Just money's going to, wow, look at that, money came in there. You know, there's nothing going to happen. It's all those things you've been buying keep showing up and you're going, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Just keep checking that's not balancing your bank account. That's not keeping your checking account balanced. There's an old thing we used to learn in general business back in the day where we learned to reconcile a bank account. And that means you take what you think you've spent and what you think you've deposited and you compare that with what the bank says you've spent and what the bank says you've deposited, and you reconcile those two, meaning you compare them and make adjustments so that your errors are fixed, actually, is what's going on. And we had one little boy came in for counseling and he kept going, you know, his thing is always balanced. His bank account was always balanced, and yet he's bouncing checks. And I couldn't figure this out. I'm looking at it, and I would go through the math. I said, you know, the only thing I can't figure out is this one entry that just occurs a lot, ESP. What's that mean? And he said, error someplace. No, this is not how you do it, okay? This is not the plan. We don't want to go that route. So, but take the time to do the proper reconciliation. And if you don't know how to do that, then you know, go online at our website and we'll walk you through it. There's no shame in not knowing how. No one's taught you probably. But quit checking your balance every day and instead learn how to do a proper reconciliation. Do that at most twice a month. At most twice a month, but once a month should suffice. In the old days, we used to get the checks in the mail once a month, and we manually did it back with our checking account back in the day. 4 of you are shaking your head. You know what I'm talking about. The rest of you are going, wow, this is new stuff. So you need to learn how to actually do this. And it's pretty easy with online banking now to actually do a full reconciliation with some easy software or even with your bank's website stuff. It's not hard to do. So check our website. We'll give you a tutorial on how to walk through it. Overdrafts are a sign of crisis living. It means that you're not doing the accounting, you're not taking care of business. The Bible says to be diligent to know the state of your flocks and herds. It's your job to be on top of what is going on with the money, and when you're bouncing checks, it says you're not. It says you're living one crisis to the next. And let me tell you how expensive this is. $29.5 billion was spent last year in overdraft fees. $30 billion because people wouldn't bother to stop and do 6th grade math and not write a check when there was no money in their account. That's ridiculous. That's out of control. And it's so bad that the banks are preying on you like parasites. They're like sucking money out of your life. $30 billion came out of the consumer's pocket. Here's the deal. They count on it. 1/3 of the typical bank's revenues are overdraft charges. That's where they're making their money. On us, we the people, being lazy. That's all it is. It's laziness. Because we're not on top of this. We're not making it behave. And you know, from a Christian perspective, we cannot call that good stewardship. It's just simply not. We cannot be giving the bank $30 billion every year because we won't stop and take the time to do 6th grade math and make our money behave. See what I'm talking about being proactive? How money leaves those who don't manage it and goes to those who do? That's a great example of it right there. Now, if not managed and made to behave, the ATM card and the debit card are certain to become budget busters. Now, I'm always telling you to cut up your credit cards. We'll cover that in the debt lesson. But your debit card can be a problem. We all know that. Because it comes out of your checking account. It can run you into overdraft if you don't keep up with it. And your ATM card can be a problem. I have met plenty of people over the years of doing financial counseling that $20 themselves to death. The ATM, the fast cash button, right? They just keep hitting that baby like that money didn't come out of their account. You have to manage all of these tools or, again, the banks are going to fee you to death. You're going to stay out of control, and you're going to continually feel like you're herding cats. It does not work. Now, internet banking is now the most popular form of banking, without a doubt. And the numbers are growing so quickly that it's unbelievable. The days of people doing banking physically with brick and mortar only and having no connectivity to their bank through the internet are just about gone. You've got the opportunity to do balance transfers between things. You can check your balance. You can reconcile there. So I've not got any issue at all. I'm not anti-internet. But again, you've got to be careful there, because when you're only doing those kinds of transactions, you're not feeling money. So be aware of that. Be aware that this actual hard, cold cash dollars that you work so hard for becomes a digit, and you're manipulating a digit, and then your behaviors can shift in a negative way. They can take you to a place you don't need to be. Now, banks have started offering budgeting software out there. Some of it's good, some of it's not. I'm always a little paranoid about what the bank is trying to do to help me, okay? So it's not that it's all bad, but just be aware that a lot of that software is trying to direct you into debt products, sign you up for a home equity loan, sign you up for their insurance program, sign you up over here for something else. So a lot of this stuff is all about advertising and putting stuff in your face to get you back into debt, or to get you into debt to start with, or to take you into products and services that are very profitable, have a large margin for them. So just be, don't be paranoid about it, but just be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. We want to be people of wisdom. We want to be known for being thoughtful and not just walking into all the traps and there goes the leg. You don't want to do that stuff. So reasons that people don't do a cash flow plan. Why is it people don't do this? It seems so obvious when you think about it. I wasn't doing one, and I had a finance degree. Why wasn't I doing a budget? Well, one reason was it had a bread and water connotation. I didn't want to do a budget because it felt like a straitjacket, right? It felt like bread and water. I'm going to be on bread and water if I'm on a budget. Budget means lack. Budget means we don't get to do anything. It's not any of that. A budget is simply a plan. You're just going to tell your money what to do. You get to tell it what to do. You can tell it bread and water. You can tell it filet mignon. You get to tell it what to do. Now, if you're broke and trying to get out of debt, we might tell it tuna fish. We might tell it beans and rice, right? Tuna fish is broke people food. That's what Sharon used to make me when we were broke, tuna fish sandwiches. I can't stand tuna fish now, because when I smell tuna fish, I feel broke. My net worth goes down if someone near me eats tuna fish. Ramen noodles, the same smell. You remember that? Yeah. Man, it makes you feel broke. It reminds you of bean bags and concrete block bookshelves in college, right? This is the thing. You've got to step back and say, the budget is me telling my money what to do, and you decide how far you're going to cut lifestyle to be able to be intense and hit these baby step goals, but you get to decide. And if you're married, you decide together as a team, the nerd and the free spirit working together like we've taught you. You've got to do that stuff. The second reason people hate to do a budget is a budget has been used to abuse you. Your parents always said, it's not in the budget. Or now you're married, and you're married to one of these nerds that might be a control freak nerd, not just a detail person, but they use the budget. I did the budget, and it's not in the budget, and so you can't do it. And they use the budget to control you, in which case you don't want to enter into a budget discussion, and I don't blame you. And so what you've got to do, if that's going on, that's not a budget problem, that's a control freak spouse problem. And so you have to deal with that relationship thing that's going on there and go, whoa, my vote counts. Just because you did the detail doesn't mean you win. My free spirits get to vote too, right? We get to work in the budget together, and we do this, but it's not going to be me telling Sharon what to do and using the budget as a club to put her in the corner in submission. People try that. It's been done, believe me. Might have happened in here, looking at the way some of you are looking at your spouses. I won't point at anybody, right? Another reason we don't want to do a budget is we never had a budget that really worked. I tried it once and it didn't work. Well, I got bad news for you. I told you earlier, you're not any good at it. It's going to take 90 days. Say 90 days. 90 days. 3 months of working on it before you learn to ride a bike, before you learn to snow ski, before you learn to drive the car, before you do the budget. You're not going to be competent the first time you sit behind the wheel. It's going to take a little time, a little trial and error, a little adjustment, a little working together for those of you that are married in the relationship. All those kinds of things have to work together. Another reason we don't want to do a budget is paralysis from fear of what we will find. I'm afraid to look in there. It's going to be bad. The trick is it may be bad, but it's probably not as bad as you've built it up in your emotions. It's kind of like that monster in the closet when you're 4 years old and trying to go to sleep. It's probably not as bad as you thought. It's probably going to open up some things. And when you get in there, you're going to discover some things that are pretty cool. One thing you're going to discover is that you've been messing up some things, and you get to choose to not do that anymore. It's very empowering in that sense. You know, you're looking at your financial self in the mirror, and you're going, "Ooh, you need to comb the hair. You know, this is bad." Now, that's not an issue with me, but so you've got to make a decision on how you're going to attack this. And when you do, that paralysis from fear will push you back and keep you away from it. I was sitting one night in Financial Peace University small group discussion with this guy and his wife, and she was really sophisticated, and he was a great guy. He was a very, very smart guy, but pretty much a country boy, you know. And he was telling the group, he says, "Yeah, we did that budget. We added it up. We were spending $1,200 a month going to restaurants." $1,200 a month in restaurants? Yeah. Figured out why I didn't have a retirement plan, been eating it. You will discover some stuff just like that, right? We all mess up. Give yourself some grace. When you do discover some of the things you've done wrong, welcome to the human race. No one gets through this without messing up. If you've made mistakes with money, that makes you over 12. Human. Everyone has made mistakes with money. Everyone has. Now, cash flow plans don't work if you do these things. Number one, if you leave things out. Now, that will be your first and most obvious mistake that happens the first 2 months that you do this. There's things that you're doing that you don't even realize when you sit down to do this. Now, our checklist, our budget forms are going to help remind you of some of these things, but you're going to forget the kids' field trip. You're going to forget the soccer pictures. You're going to forget about this or that, and then I forgot I got that baby shower, and I got to buy a gift for that, that kind of stuff, right? It's going to come in, and you leave things out, and it'll mess up your budget. Don't give up. Just next time, you'll remember better. And you just keep adjusting, keep course correcting. You're going to be better at riding the bike after you've ridden in a while. The second thing that messes people up is they overcomplicate their plan. I love for you to do, especially your first several months, in handwritten form on the budget forms instead of using software. I love for you to do that because it makes the software person communicate in the house with the non-software person. I'm pretty good at software, but Sharon looking over my shoulder at a spreadsheet isn't the same as us sitting at the kitchen table poring over the numbers. We're feeling the numbers then. So I love for you to write it out. Now, some of you are going to be bent. You're going to do software. That's fine. You do whatever you want to do. I'm just warning you, you need to learn to feel money, and you need to think about the relationship when you're married. That's more important than whether the columns add up right automatically. And so really don't overcomplicate things. Now, I'm the nerd at my house. I've told you guys that. And so I'm the guy who, when in doubt, I overcomplicate it. I will figure out a way to create some tangled up thing just because I can, and that will keep your budget from working. Keep it very primitive, very simple, very clean, so that all the parties involved, both spouses, will participate and will understand it and will agree and can stick to it. That's huge. Another reason a budget doesn't work is if people don't actually do them. You have to do the budget. You have to do the written plan. There's no way out of it. And I told you the first night, and I'm going to tell you over and over and over again, all of our analysis of all the successful stories we've got, millions of families going through Financial Peace University, the number one thing we keep finding out over and over and over again, the closest statistical correlation to success going through this program are those that actively engage in this budgeting process. And for those that are married, they're doing it together. They do their budget, they bring it to class, they check it with their coordinator, they're learning how to do something they've never done before. They're happening to their money on paper. You've got to actually do it. And then once you're doing it, you actually have to live on the budget. A lot of people fill the thing out like it's a freaking theory. It's not a theory. This is your plan. This is your contract. You are laying it down. It's the out-of-bounds marker. Did you put your foot on the out-of-bounds marker? Does slow-mo show that the pass is incomplete because the foot was out of bounds? That's what you're looking for. You got to figure out, is this our life? And once you say, this is what we're going to spend on clothing, we're not going to spend any more than that on clothing unless we come back together and change the budget. You actually use this as your operating document. It's not theory. And you go, oh, well, it would be nice, yeah, we'd all balanced on paper, but we just went over here and did whatever we wanted to do. Doesn't work that way. Now, reasons we should do a cash flow plan, pretty simple. A written plan removes the management by crisis from your finances. A certain percentage, somewhere between 10 and 20% of the people in any given Financial Peace University class are the people that are crisis right now. They're in crisis. They're behind on their bills. They're struggling. And if you're that person and you're listening to me or you're watching this video or you're in here with us live and you're in crisis, the first thing you've got to learn to do is the first thing that happens with money is you take care of what we call the four walls, the necessities of life. The four walls are food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and utilities. We're going to take care of the basics first, no matter what. Take the basics first, because the Bible says take care of your own household first, or you're worse than an unbeliever. We start with food, shelter, clothing, transportation, and utilities. I can't tell you how many times people have come in for counseling over the years, and they're current on their MasterCard, and they're behind on their house. They're current on their Discover card, and their electricity is about to be cut off. See, that's wrong priorities. You take care of your family first, then you get current. Well, I might mess up my credit. Who cares if your credit is messed up if your kids are eating? You take care of your family first, and then you move to the other. And if you're really deep into that, go online and watch the Credit Sharks and Suits lesson from Financial Peace University. See that, and that tells you how to deal with collectors and how to set up plans where you're really deep in a crisis situation. You want to dig in and watch that and learn that whole thing. This crisis thing's a big deal. When we were going broke and losing everything, we used to do our budget, and we'd take care of food first, utilities second, shelter third, transportation fourth, and basic clothing, if there was any clothing that needed to be purchased, last. Then we would work on other stuff. And we would go all the way down that list until the money ran out, and where the money ran out, we would draw a line, and whoever was below the line, we wanted to pay them, but we didn't have the money. So you go as far down the list if you're in crisis as you can go, and then you draw a line. And you decide on purpose, on paper, who's going to be mad. Who are we not going to pay? I was doing that, and I had one of these collectors call up from the credit card company screaming at the top of his lungs. He thought that would work. Little did he know he wasn't the first one that had tried it. It became a hobby to understand how these guys operate as we were going broke, because they were hammering us day in and day out, multiple calls a day, all times of the day and night. It was unbelievable. And he's just screaming and literally cussing, calling my mother names and all this stuff. I mean, he's just going bananas on me. And finally, he took a breath, and I just said, dude, I would really like to pay you. And he got real quiet. And I said, but I can't, because you're below the line. And he said, do what? And I said, well, every month we do our bills, and we go down the bills as far as we can go with the money we have, and then we draw a line, and everybody below the line doesn't get paid, and you're below the line. He said, you're kidding. I said, do I sound like I'm kidding? You're below the line, you don't get paid. Long pause. How do I get above the line? You're nicer next time you call. Right? Try some manners, son. It'll go a long way. And here's the thing. Managed money works harder. Managed money feels like you're getting a raise. When you start doing this written plan and you make these dollars behave, you wouldn't believe the number of times I get a phone call, an email, a letter, I meet someone on the street, Dave, I finally did that budget. I got a master's degree in finance. I had never done a written budget for our household. My wife and I are in agreement on this. We feel like we got a raise. I hear that all the time because there's all this wasted money and wasted energy in disorganization. When you make these dollars behave, when they have to single file do what they're supposed to do, you get that whip and that chair, and you're whipping them into shape, you're going to get this sense of power over your money that you've never, ever had. This lesson is the one that does that. It's not the theory of getting out of debt. It's not that whole thing of the debt snowball. It's not learning to work with your spouse. Those things all work together. But it comes to a point here in this lesson, when you make this money behave, you'll have this sense of power and this sense of getting a raise that you've never had before. A written plan, if actually lived on and agreed to, will remove many of the money fights from your marriage. We're teaching you several things in here that affects your marriage, big time. And this is probably the biggest one. When I first started teaching this stuff, I thought, hey, I'm teaching people about insurance and retirement plans and how to do a budget and how to get out of debt. And I had people come up to me after I was teaching it, and they said, Dave, this class saved our marriage. And I'm like, dude, the sex class was down the hall. What do you mean this class saved your marriage? Dave, we had a good marriage. It made it great. Dave, we were about divorce, and we've been to 3 marriage counselors and couldn't fix it. And we started doing a budget together, and it made us work out our stuff, and it saved our marriage. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. It was this huge byproduct, unexpected to me, but nowadays, 20 years later, very expected for this to impact your marriage. It forces you to work together. Now, a written cash flow plan will remove the money fights from your marriage, not completely. At first, it's going to cause some. So be nice to each other. You nerds, be nice to your free spirits. You free spirits, be nice to your nerds. You sit down and you talk and you work through this gently and have it's not a whip and a chair on the spouse, it's a whip and a chair on the money. Okay? We're going to learn to work together and cooperate and communicate. 97% of the women, when surveyed, say they would like more communication. Wow. Here's a great opportunity for some quality communication about almost everything that's going on in your life, because money touches almost everything in your life. This is huge. It'll remove a lot of the guilt, the shame, the fear that could be part of buying basic necessities. How many people buy stuff like clothing and then that causes a fight? Anybody? Yeah, it does. I can't tell you how many times Sharon bought something over the years, and I'd be like, "Now you spending money. Well, I don't spend money like you spend money." And here we go, right? Because there wasn't a defined thing. But once we set out and said, "This is how much we spend on clothing," then we were okay. Then she can spend that much on clothing no matter what, and she could buy one thing or 40 things or whatever, and there was no argument about it, and she didn't feel this tension while she was buying something. It was part of our plan that was pre-agreed to. And it was real nice for me because I actually started enjoying some of her purchase. I was like, hey, that's nice. She goes, you actually said I bought something that was nice. That's weird. Because there was always a fight before. There was always this tension in the air about whether she had messed something up or whether I had messed something up. And when I bought something, it's like I had to hide it or something from my own wife. That's silliness. That's silliness. It's because we are not communicating. We're not laying out a game plan by which we can both stick to. If you are doing a written plan, it'll show you where you're overspending on certain areas. Like, for instance, that guy I was talking about where they're overspending on restaurants. And they went, $1,200 is not okay for us to spend on restaurants. We're going to back that one down. A written plan will give you a sense of power and control over money that you've never had before. Empowerment is a word I hear a lot around the Financial Peace University course. I feel so empowered about this subject of money that has always dominated me. Now I am happening to it. Now I've got a sense of control over it, and this is what does that. The easiest and most powerful plan is the zero-based budget. The zero-based plan using the envelope system. Now, the zero-based plan does not mean you have zero money. It does not mean that you spend all your money down and you have zero in your account. You ought to keep a pad of $50 or $100 in your account. Zero-based means that your take-home pay is X And you give every one of those dollars a name. You give the money, you save the money, you pay it on debt, or you spend the money on a category. Income minus your categories equals exactly 0 every month before the month begins. On paper, on purpose, unique to every month before the month begins. That's essential. That's a zero-based budget. Now, we had one guy that he added all of his up and he got down, he had $479 left at the bottom. He went, "Hey, I'm positive." Yeah, I'm positive you didn't get it. Because that $479 just left dangling down there, you know what it's going to do? Disappear. You might as well have added it to the blow category or the miscellaneous category, because if it's not got a name, if it's not got an assignment, it's going to wander off. And that's what everybody else's budget does, right? It just wanders off. That's why you're getting more power, because you're giving those dollars an assignment. Income minus assignments equals 0. That's the zero-based budget. Now, some things in there, you get the opportunity to feel the money using the envelope system. Now, at our house today, all these years later, 20 some odd years we've been doing this stuff, we still use the envelope system in our home. We don't do it for a bunch of stuff, but we do it for a few categories. The biggest one that most people use it for is food. And this is a great one, because here's what you do. You take an envelope, you write food on it, and then you look at your budget, you see what you've allocated for food for that pay period. You write a check to yourself and you cash the check. And then you take real cash equal to the amount for that food for that pay period, and you put it in the envelope. And then you don't buy any food ever except out of this envelope. No cheating, no debit cards, no checks, no nothing. All your food comes out of this. You will shop completely differently. It'll change everything. You start buying your groceries with cash, you start going to restaurants with cash, it'll change everything on what you're spending. You will feel, literally, emotionally, spiritually feel that transaction going on. Try this. If you don't try anything else, at least try it with food. A good one is clothing. Because if she's got her clothing envelope or I've got my clothing envelope, I can buy that jacket and I'm not going to get yelled at. You know, there's not a breakdown. It's in the deal. And the kids' college fund is still getting funded over here. And that debt's being paid over here, because it's all part of our overall plan, and this is just one piece of the plan. So with the food envelope, you put your cash in there, and then if you get to the end of the month and there's some money left over, well, you go out to eat and enjoy it, or you go to Sam's and buy that 9 gallons of mustard you always wanted. To this day, if you see my wife Sharon Ramsey and she has her purse with her, it'll have one of our deluxe envelope systems in it that we sell. And it's got the place for the checkbook and all that other stuff. But she just loves the convenience of this. And she's got her clothing money here. If she sees a sale, she can buy something. And she's got some of our entertainment cash is here. That's another good one for envelope. And she's certainly got the food envelope here every single time. I carry cash in my pocket, and we call that GEM, G-E-M, Gas, Entertainment, Miscellaneous. In other words, Dave's money. And that's my cash in my front pocket that I carry with me, and I can spend that without guilt, without shame, without my wife being upset, and without us missing our goals because Dave overspent. That's money I can buy anything I want to with, as long as I keep gas in the car and keep things moving. One of my favorite possessions is this little thing. A guy sent this to me from Spokane, Washington. He found it in an antique shop over there, and it's an antique envelope system. The calendar on here says 1948. Wow. The old envelopes are yellowed. And as I look through here, I think about that couple in the 40s using this old envelope system. It's got food and clothing. The one I love is the one on here that says Hawaii. You know, I never met these people, but I kind of feel a kinship to them because I've owned this thing for several years. And I really like to think of them saving all those years to get to take that trip of a lifetime. That's the way people used to do stuff. They didn't use a home equity loan. They used to save up and do this right. You know what's interesting is I've been on vacations that I pay cash for, because that's all I do now. It's really interesting that when you pay cash for your vacations, they don't follow you home. The vacation's completely different. There's a different level of relaxation when you know you're not ruining your life while you're on vacation. It's a different kind of a feel. Now, a couple of years back, there was a movie called Jerry Maguire. Anybody remember that movie? Famous scene in there where he yells, "Show me the money." You remember that scene? I want everybody in here to stand up. Everybody stand up. Now, here's what I want you to think about. I already told you that the average family makes $500,000 in 10 years, so it's safe to say that the typical person in here, the typical family represented in here, the typical family watching us on these videos will earn in their working lifetime anywhere from $3 to $12 or $14 million. You sit in traffic to go over there to that job and earn that money. You put up with crazy customers at that job to earn that money. Some of you put up with crazy bosses over there to earn that money. You work too hard for that money to get to the end of your life and have nothing to show for it. The whole essence of this lesson is for you to happen to your money, for you to look at yourself in the mirror, for you to look at the paperwork, and you to say, have a Jerry Maguire moment, and you to say, "Show me the money." Now I want you to yell that at the top of your lungs like your whole life's earnings are on the line, because your whole life's earnings are on the line. You got to make your money behave. You work too hard to get to the end of your life and be broke. So yell, "Show me the money." Show me the money. One more time. Show me the money. Awesome. Have a seat. Awesome. Woo. I love it. Now keep in mind, that's what we're doing. We're trying to be emotional about this. We're trying to shift behaviors. We're trying to change and inject passion, inject relationships, inject parts of our spiritual walk into this whole process. That's why this overall program is successful. But it requires that you have the discipline to sit down and do the written game plan. Absolutely the only way to do it. All right, let's look at some of our budgeting forms. In the back of your workbook is a full set of forms, and online is a full set of budgeting forms. But for purposes tonight, we're going to go through just the key budgeting forms, the 3 that you have to know and you have to understand to be able to put the whole system together. The rest of it, you fill in. There's online tutorials. You'll learn about it. You've got to go back and do that. All the forms are in the back of your book. All the forms are online. But let's look at the key 3 forms. The first one is the monthly cash flow plan. Now, the monthly cash flow plan is a 2-page system, a 2-page form that does your whole monthly budget there. In the top right-hand corner of that form is the monthly take-home pay. We're going to use an example couple, Joe and Susie Smith or Joe and Susie Jones, and we're going to say their take-home pay for the month is $3,660 in the upper right-hand corner. Now, if you look, you see whole categories here, and each of those categories are total. These are assignments for your dollars. And so you've got an assignment for charitable giving, tithing, and other giving. You've got an assignment for savings. You've got housing, utilities, and all these others. And you total each of those to the bottom right-hand corner of that area. Let's start with utilities and look at that one. In utilities, we'll say Joe and Susie spend $100 on electricity, $75 on gas, $55 on water, $124 on mobile and phone, $40 on the internet, and you total them all up, and it's $394 in the right-hand corner for all of your utilities. Then you go over on the second side of that form, the second page of that form, bottom right-hand corner, and we pull from the top where we have the take-home pay, and we put that in the first slot, $3,660. Then we take all the totals from all the other categories, including that $394 from utilities that we did just a minute ago, and they should total $3,660, which makes your bottom right-hand corner always 0. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen at your first pass through that form. Obviously, you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to either add or subtract or take away and change some of these things to be able to get that to work. But we've got to get to a 0 in the bottom of that right-hand corner. Now, how many of you get paid once a week? How many of you get paid 1st and 15th? Okay. Now, the next form helps us break it out by paycheck, the allocated spending plan form. There are 4 columns there for 4 weeks. If you have 4 different pay periods, you'll use all of them. If you only get paid on the 1st and 15th, you're only going to use 2 of them. And at my house, we get paid on the 1st and 15th. At Joe and Susie's house, our example couple, they get paid on the 1st and 15th. So column 1 is 7/1 to 7/14. Now, for that pay period, their take-home pay is $3,188. Now, the way this works is like an old-fashioned checkbook, where you write the check out and then you have the remaining balance. You write the check out and then you have the remaining balance. You write the check out and you have the remaining balance, and we're trying to get, for each pay period, that remaining balance to zero. So when we write our $410 tithe check out to the church, we end up with $2,778 remaining balance. And then if we flip over on the other page, we can look at some other examples where when we pay the first mortgage at $945, the remaining balance is $1,833, and then we pay $100 for the electricity, it's $1,733, and we pay $40 for the internet, it's $1,693. We're trying to take where that $1,693 is all the way down to zero. We want every dollar to have an assignment for each pay period as well, because everyone knows that you like have your rent or your mortgage at the first of the month, and you got like cable, maybe you've got something like a car payment or second on the 15th of the month. And so that 1st and 15th are different things you do with that. You might have the same amount for food in each of the 1st and 15th, but very few things are going to be the same in every pay period all the way across. Most of them are going to be assigned to a certain pay period. And so this means that every dollar has been spent for every check on paper before the month begins. Now, how many of you have straight commission, or you get irregular income from bonuses, or have self-employed, that kind of thing, unpredictable income? See, a lot of those people say, well, I can't do a budget, I don't have an unpredictable income, I get out of it, I get a hall pass. No, you don't. No, you don't. You've got to do a budget more than anybody else, because those are the people that think they can out-earn their stupidity. I'm one of them. You can't do that. You have got to make your money behave. So what we're going to do is you take your low average month, what your worst month would be, and you do a regular budget with that. So let's say you're straight commission, and that the whole household is straight commission. Then you take, and the worst month you've ever had is $3,000 a month. Well, you do a regular budget for $3,000, and you take care of the important stuff over there, like food and shelter and utilities and that kind of stuff, your four walls, that kind of thing. Then we make a list over here of other stuff that's legitimate that we want to do or need to do. Maybe we're celebrating, maybe we're buying clothes, maybe we're going on vacation, maybe we're paying extra on debt, maybe we're increasing our giving. I don't care what it is. We make a list of all the things we would want to do with money if we had a fabulous month, the best month ever. And then you look at that list and you say, what's the most important thing on that list? And you put a 1 beside that, and then you look at the list and say, if we could do one more thing after that, what will we do? And you put a 2 beside that. And then we look at that list and say, what will we do if we could do one more thing? We put a 3 beside that, and we work our way all the way down. Then we take that prioritized list in order and we write it on the irregular income planning sheet. Now, in Joe and Susie's case, they're working their debt snowball. They put their smallest debt up there as the most important thing to do if Joe or Susie gets a bonus or gets a commission check. And that's a hospital bill for $460. Now, you'll notice on the right-hand column, again, we've got a running total. This time it's going up, because we're building up and seeing how big a wish list this really is in priority. Then we take the Home Depot bill. We're going to pay off that bill, that credit card, $770. So $460 plus $770 is $1,230. Plus $50 for extra entertainment is $1,280. Now they've got $3,300 owed on a Chase Visa card, and we're not going to make them pay. They chose to not pay that whole thing off before they spend a little extra blow money on some clothing, a little upgrade of clothing. But they wanted to make a good hit on it. So they say $500 towards the Visa card, which is a $1,780 total. And then if we make it past that, we'll spend $100 on clothing, and that'll be an $1,880 total. So Joe gets in, or Susie gets in, a bonus check of $1,500. Obviously, we're not going all the way to $1,880. We've only got $1,500. But that running total tells us all the way down there how far that $1,500 is going to go. And so you go right straight down that list to that $1,500. Well, we can tell the $1,500 is not even going to make it all the way through the Chase Visa, but it certainly knocks out the first 3, doesn't it? Say yes. Yes. Okay, and we got the first 3 knocked out. Then we're going to end up putting, it looks like, a couple of $100 towards that Chase Visa. And then, of course, next time we could start maybe with the Chase Visa at the top and then move to the clothing. So next time maybe we'll get to that clothing as we go down. So it's kind of like you mark them all off and they slide up and the thing keeps moving. So you use these 3 forms together as the central part of your budgeting system. But you can learn the whole budgeting system. It's in there. It's really not complicated, and it will absolutely change everything. The budget budget is the most important thing you're going to do in this whole deal. All of our research of all the success having to do with people going through Financial Peace University, those who have the best experience, those who pay off the most debt, those who move the needle the most in their lives, and they say, my marriage was changed, my life was changed, it all goes back to they're using these budgets to do it. They're using the budget system to force them to make these choices, to make different decisions. Your homework for this lesson is to take these forms and do a full-blown zero-based budget. It's your first one, and you will do them every month for the rest of your life. They will get easier, like riding a bicycle or driving a car. How many of us hardly even think when we're driving a car now? It's second nature. That's the way I am with budgeting after 20-something years. It's so easy, and it's so easy with my spouse. All of that stuff is long ago ironed out. And it is one of the reasons we've been successful financially, because Jesus said, don't build a tower without first counting the cost, lest you get halfway up and you're unable to finish. Don't live your life that way. You work too hard to do that. Make this money behave. You will not win without doing a budget. So bring your budget to class each and every night. Sit down with your accountability group. Now, we don't want our coordinator to go through the details of your budget and go, what are you doing? We're not doing that. I can't believe that. Look at class she spent. We don't do that, okay? We just want to see that you did it. And we want to see that if you're married, that you're both in on it. That's what we want to see. So I'm expecting the coordinators in the classes to check the budgets and to check to see that you have them, and that's their job. And so be expecting them to do that in the small group discussion. Coordinators, that is your job. Job one is to make sure the people in your classes are doing budgets. You want to be a superstar coordinator? Make sure the people are doing budgets, because that's where the life change absolutely happens. All right, let's go to the bottom of the page and look for your 1-minute idea. What's your big takeaway from this lesson? 1 minute. Let's go.